If there were one topic from spirituality, psychology, or self-help that I could make go mainstream, I would want it to be shadow work. There have been some people approaching the mainstream, such as Jordan Peterson, Tony Robbins, and then obviously Carl Jung, who's becoming more popular, who've talked a lot about the shadow of the psyche, and they've talked a lot about integrating that shadow. I don't think they've made it very clear why it's important to do that, or really how to do it, and what it even means in the first place. And I think that there are 5 basic principles to shadow work that both clarify it and that manage to make it appear as what it actually is, which is vitally important to every individual. Of course, not everybody's going to have the same amount of depth of shadow work that they're interested in, or maybe even that they need to involve themselves in, but others of us really have to dig deep into our shadow. The parts of us that are unknown, hidden from ourselves, or disowned. We have to dive deep into those, because without it, our lives will just be run by unconscious motives, and we will be extremely negative. And if you can relate to that at all, let's talk about it. The first principle that I see in shadow work is what people might commonly call trauma, but I'm going to define as the YouTuber Teal Swan would define it, which is distress without resolve. We've all had distress in our lives that has gone unresolved. Sometimes it's a need that's not been met by other people in our lives. Maybe we've been neglected, or maybe we've been abused even, because the alternative is, if it wasn't a need that went unmet, then it was actually something that was taken away from you with malice, or harm that was done to you intentionally by a friend or a family member, or maybe a stranger, though it seems more likely that the impactful events would be from friends and family. That's how it was for me. The second principle, after understanding that we all have distress without resolve, is that as long as this distress goes unresolved, you will carry the emotional triggers with you. Some triggers in your life are so frequent or so prolonged, or the circumstances are so frequent or so prolonged, that it's almost like you've become numb to the triggers themselves. You don't necessarily feel activated emotionally. You might not be angry or enraged, or you might just even feel numb, but you still act on behalf of the emotion that's triggered, so that you can either avoid the trigger or manage to suppress it when you're activated. The third principle is that there are parts of you that you have given up access to as a sacrifice that you believed would resolve your emotional distress, or that you currently believe will cover up the pain. So to put that differently, let's say that you're somebody who's competitive. And because you were competitive as a young child, other kids didn't really like playing with you as much, and your parents would get after you and tell you to calm down and to be more cooperative. So you took this part of you that's competitive, and you decided, okay, I don't need that anymore. That's not working out. You go into the rest of your life, potentially, hiding from your competitive senses, doing everything you can just to be, not even collaborative, but just avoiding competition to your own discredit. Anyway, the fourth principle is, as long as you don't bring resolution to your distress, then those aspects of you that you have disowned will continue to show up and act in their own behalf through the back door. They'll find ways where, even if you're logically or consciously opposed to, let's say, being competitive, your competitive nature will find its way out. You hear common phrases such as, I just couldn't help it, or it was like something came over me. And these are indications that a trigger has begun running somebody by literally saying, hey, there's this aspect of yourself that you are pushing out of your conscious awareness that needs to be fulfilled, such as competitiveness. And so it's fulfilling its drive. You are being competitive because you're not looking at it. You deny that you're being competitive. And then you wonder, why is it that I suddenly just get taken over when I'm playing video games with my brother and he's winning and I'm throwing a fit and chucking the controller across the room? The fifth principle is that facing and resolving the distress in our lives is ultimately what allows you to become whole again. And this is by helping you regain access to the part of yourself that you had been suppressing, denying, disowning, that you had lost. Now, this may not be easy to do. It may not be easy to even know which parts of yourself you're not looking at because they're in the unconscious mind. You have shoved them out. You've been ignoring or avoiding them for your whole life. So it may not be easy to do this at all. You may be completely unaware how to start. In fact, you might not even think that you have these issues at all, but I can guarantee you that there are things in your life that are patterns, things that keep happening that you don't like. And I almost guarantee you, because sometimes this isn't true, but 99% of the time, I can guarantee you that you play a major part in those things happening over and over. You are just as responsible for it as anybody. Like I said, some extenuating circumstances. But the last thing to know is that with patience, guidance, feedback from friends or from people who can come to know your circumstances and really watch you and be honest with you, with those things and with bravery, you might find that healing can actually be simple, even if it's not easy. And that it can be rewarding, even if at first it's terrifying and hard. This is where it comes true that sometimes the most worthwhile things in life are the hardest. You got to take the first step. You got to find someone who can help you. Sometimes it's friends and family. Sometimes you just don't have those anymore. And sometimes, with the right guidance, you can get the friends and family back or make new ones.